What's good, folks? Welcome back to the Furnished Mind. Remember, Christ is King. Let's go. I remember from the era of like about 2016 till 2020 when everything got shut down. That was when Twitter transformed into a monster that we all grew to despise. It all started during the 2016 presidential campaign. Everybody expected Hillary to win, but instead Trump did. And that was when we heard 4 years of it was Russian interference. The U.S. government colluded with Russian, whoever, some weird psyop. That's the reason why Hillary lost. And that's when we started seeing on Twitter all this rhetoric about how speech is violent if it's slanted in the wrong direction, to speak out against certain groups like the rainbow community or any liberal platform, any prominent liberal thinker, political analyst in general. Your speech criticizing them or even directly quoting them back to themselves would be considered violence. But here we are, fast forward, we have the president of Harvard, MIT, Penn. They're being questioned here. And it's in regards to like a lot of the protests that have been going on universities regarding Israel versus Palestine. And a lot of pro-Palestinian people, I mean, they've been protesting heavy, and a lot of them have been calling for violence. I'm not saying it's a one-way street, but it was so prominent to the point where they had to literally have this tribunal set up to question the heads of these universities and ask, saying, basically, guys, is a call of genocide towards a specific ethnic group, is that right or is that wrong? And the verbal gymnastics that was played here, absolute gold medal. But you know what? Let me just go ahead and play the video, and we can kind of hear it for ourselves.
Dr. Kornbluth, at MIT, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
You've targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants.
Okay, so let's go ahead and pause right there. She's saying calling for the mass genocide of Jews. Does this violate your code of conduct? And instead of saying yes or no, because you can replace Jews with any other ethnic group, any race, any religion, we understand the answer. You could say calling for the genocide against whites, against Asians, against African Americans. We would understand the answer and the position that needs to be taken and needs to be heard. But instead, she deflects by saying, I have not heard anyone say this. You're deflecting because we're discussing the code of conduct. But let's go ahead.
Which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules?
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill.
Ms. McGill is lying. If somebody called for the genocide of South Africans, over. You're done. There's no questions asked. They're not going to set up a tribunal to question you. You lose scholarships. If you're an athlete, you're kicked off your teams, you're looking for a new university yesterday. It's not, guys.
So is your
If it-
testimony
if
that
it-
you will not answer yes?
If it if the
Yes
speech
or no?
becomes, if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes. And Dr.
Just to pause right there, the smirk she had on her face says it all. I'll go as far as saying most universities in the West have been hijacked. They belong to our liberal figureheads, and basically they funnel liberalism. All the progressive positions are being funneled to our children, not just universities, K through 12 as well. That's why most of them support the rainbow community. It's why most of them, just recently on TikTok, you saw them being apathetic towards Osama bin Laden, the letter from Osama bin Laden to America. And they're all like, how do you get an entire generation to, like, that's just how masterful they are. And of course, the same subset of people, there's also the ones that are supporting, majority of them are the ones supporting Palestine. And we understand that's the position that's been taken throughout our universities, especially our Ivy League schools. It's very difficult to find those who are pro-Israel and can maintain such a position without facing backlash, firings, kicked out of schools, or just obviously just the harassment and ill treatment you will receive from your peers. It's not an easy position, but we'll let this video kind of continue.
Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, at an individual.
It's
Severe,
targeted at
pervasive.
Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism?
It doesn't have to be targeted at an individual. Back in my university days, if I were to stand in the middle of the student union on top of a table and say, death to whatever ethnic group, they're not going to say, well, it wasn't targeted at a specific individual. Don't do it again. No, you're going to feel the full force of that university. You're going to experience all the ramifications that come along with making such a disgusting statement, as I should. But for her, the president of Harvard, oh Lord, for her to come up here and say this.
I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric. When
And is it
crosses into
anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board.
Tell them, unacceptable. Those are the heads of our prestigious universities, guys. Harvard, MIT, UPenn. Sometimes it's just better to hear directly from the horse's mouth, as they say, and you got your answer. Stop believing like, oh no, maybe there's no. They want to pretend like these are so layered and more complex than they are. It's very simple. Like I said, if you were to replace Jew with any other ethnic group, any other race, any other religion, they would know what time it is. But for some strange reason, Well, guys, you guys go ahead and let me know your thoughts. I do believe there is a slant against those who take a pro-Israel position. It's very common to see pro-Palestinians dominate. It's very common to see pro-Palestinian marches and protests, to see their flags flying. Those who are pro-Israel, it's very common to see them shamed for their position. It's always assumed that, oh, maybe they just don't understand the context of what's going on. But you guys let me know down in the comments what's going on here. What are your thoughts on the issue? But again, deuces.